what do you make of the dialogue around Brandon Allen? I saw you kind of push back hard on Greg Papa on his Brandon Allen Brandon Allen, if the Niners may like Brandon Allen, and he could be the reason they trade Trey Lance. And man, I'm saying it to you because you're here, but you weren't the only one. Lots and lots and lots of people were like losing their mind over Greg saying that. And I was thinking, why is that? And the only conclusion I can come to is that they think that Greg's opinion represents more than just the play-by-play announcer's opinion, that it represents some kind of sourced material coming directly from the franchise, and they're pushing back on that because it sounds like they're using Greg to spin a narrative. I don't know how tied in he is. I don't know his connection as far as what he knows or doesn't know and who he talks to and doesn't talk to, or how privy he is or not to any internal dialogue. But from your perspective, you push back on it. So let me ask you, what was your takeaway from his video that KMBR put out there saying that, kind of just talking it through? Hey, if the 49ers, really believe in Brandon Allen, then maybe that will mean a trade of Trey Lance.
Yeah, I didn't take it. I think a lot of people did take it exactly how you said, where they're like, well, I mean, he's not just saying that. I mean, the smoke doesn't come from anywhere. He's connected to the team. And I didn't look at it like that at all. I really looked at it as his opinion. And the reason I looked at it that way is what I pointed out in the tweet is he's had a lot of really bad opinions that were not even close to true and never came true and were never at all the opinion of the team. And so that's really all I was pointing out. It's like, man, this guy at every turn, I mean, since the beginning, in my opinion, has really tried to just like move on from Trey. From day one, it was like, well, they might extend Jimmy Garoppolo now. I mean, Jimmy Garoppolo is a really good player and he might be here another 3, 4, 5 years if they can make it cheap enough. And it's like, dude, chill out for a second, and he's kind of done that every step of the way. And so that was kind of what I was pointing out. That was my frustration with it. It's like, I don't think he's giving any opinion of the team necessarily, but I will say this. I don't necessarily disagree with him. Even on my show on Tuesday, and I talked about it. I said, if I'm the 49ers and I've chosen a quarterback, and if I really think that I've got the franchise quarterback in Brock Purdy or Trey Lance, I wish when they got Trey Lance, they had moved on from Jimmy right away, just removed any sort of issue and given the whole franchise to Trey and just see what he can do. Maybe if they had done that, we would know a little bit more about Trey than what we know now. But the same thing with Purdy. If they think that Purdy is the guy and they really believe that in their hearts, and it sure does seem that way, the way that some people that you would think would be a little bit closer to the team talk about their thoughts on Purdy, then I would move on from Trey. I would remove any hiccup or speed bump out of my franchise quarterback's way that I can. And, I look at a guy like Chase Young that's out there. If Washington wants to do a Chase Young for Trey Lance swap, and I believe that Purdy's my guy, I'm probably making a trade like that. And I'm probably not hesitating. So I don't necessarily disagree with the premise that he came up with. Hey, if you think Brandon Allen's good enough to be a third string quarterback and win some games for you if need be, you don't need 4 guys. So you might as well move someone. And if Purdy's your guy, well, then, it would make sense to move Trey. So I don't fully disagree with him. I don't think the 49ers are thinking that way at all, in my opinion. I think that they're planning on keeping all these guys at least until the trade deadline.
Howard Cushland says Papa's been anti-Trey since day one. I don't know that for sure, but I don't know that that's not the case.
Yeah,
I do think that's an interesting observation. One of the things I want to do here is I want to share the screen on a video that was a tweet. It was a tweet from my good friend Ryan Hensley. I say my good friend because he blocked me on Twitter. I'm just joking about that. But I like you, Ryan. Bring me on back, baby. Anyway, he said he tweeted out that Trey Lance shared this on his IG.
Uh-huh.
And there it is. Let me see if I can actually go to the page and actually play it. Have you seen the video? Have you seen this?
Mm-hmm.
You
Mm-hmm.
have. Okay, so I could sum it up, but I'll just play it for the people who haven't seen it. And this was on Trey Lance's Instagram, and this is a Steve Harvey segment. Okay, here we go.
Supposed to know. You're not supposed to know. Supposed to know. You're not supposed to know. Life is a mystery. If you take away the mystery and everything was certain, you would need faith. Faith functions best when you don't know. So God often puts us in positions where we don't know to destabilize us from relying too much on what we know. Yeah.
I mean, to me, that was really interesting because it makes you want to analyze what's going through Trey's mind. And is that a reference to the Niners have kept Trey in the dark, but he senses that with, maybe with Jack Cohn working out as a fifth quarterback and Brandon Allen, a second quarterback in Cincinnati, now coming here to be technically the fourth quarterback, and Darnold, who signed here with incentives as last year's starter at the end of the year with Carolina, came here to be the third quarterback. Is he maybe, I don't know. I mean, what was your read on that? We're getting into psychological evaluations and reading people's minds, but one, I thought it was an awesome quote. And but if you think about it from Trey putting that out on Instagram, it does make you think, what is going through the young man's mind? Do you think he's in the dark? Do you think he's in the know? Do you think that they've told him his status? Do you think he hasn't been told his status? What do you think?
I think a lot of people get frustrated when we try to psychoanalyze these things. But reality of the situation is most players will put out a song lyric or a quote like that or a video, and it usually doesn't mean nothing. Right? Like Debo last year, there was a perfect example. It was like, just quit analyzing it. He blocks Grant. He's like, it was just a rap lyric. You're looking too far into it. And then a week later, he's requesting a trade. It's like, oh, so it was just a rap lyric, huh? Like an ill-timed rap lyric? Like, no, they meant something. And so I do think the timing is interesting, no doubt about it. It was essentially right around the time that we knew that, hey, Purdy's ahead of schedule and it looks like he's going to start and all these other things. And so I think it was just kind of his way of saying like, hey, I don't know what's going to happen here. Obviously, I wish I had all the answers. I wish I was just the starter of this team or it was my team. But I got to have faith that God has a plan for me. And I think, much like Brock Purdy, they're both men of faith. And, to me, it was nothing more than just saying like, hey, my faith's in God. Whatever happens here, I'm not positive, but my faith's going to remain in God and we'll see how it plays out here. So I don't think it was anything gigantic, but I definitely think in that moment, it's kind of where his mind's at. Like, man, I really wish I was starting or really wish I knew what was going on, but I don't. So I'm just going to have to put my faith in God like I always have.
Trey's been real clear. He's like, I just want a chance to compete.
For sure. Yep.
But the 49ers have been really clear on their front that Brock is the leader in the clubhouse. Mm-hmm. And Trey publicly, at least, has never really pushed back on that either. He acknowledges that what Brock accomplished last year does kind of put him as the leader in the clubhouse.
For sure.
But if the 49ers don't want a competition, if you're Trey, is that change your mind about wanting to be here? I mean, that Trey was asked the other day when he was on the podium, hey, would you like to be traded? He's like, no. Before the question could even get out, he's like, no. But he also has said he wants a chance to compete. Grant directly asked Shanahan, hey, have you reached out to Trey? Have you reached out to his representative about a trade if you're going to go with Brock Purdy as the number one? Shanahan gave him the very terse no. Seemed kind of annoyed as hell by the question and gave him a one-word answer and moved on. Didn't say that we're not having conversations about it, just didn't say that he's talked to Trey or his representative about it. You know what I mean? So he kept it real, didn't expand on it at all to give anybody anything. He just answered his question no.
And nor should he. Nor, I mean, even if they
smart.
had extensive conversations, he should say, nope.
Yeah. I mean, why? Well, I mean, I guess you got to be honest. If you're, well, no, you don't got to be honest. I don't know. Actually, I don't even really know if you got what's the smart approach, because on some level, you don't want to lose control over the whole thing and have it dominate headlines and make everything else a total subplot. And this is the main plot. You're trying to run a football team, and there's 53 guys on the roster. You got 90 guys on your offseason camp roster that you're trying to bring this whole thing together. But I don't know. What is your perspective on if you were in Trey's shoes and all you want is a chance to compete, but the 49ers' consistent message has been, we're going with Brock. Then would you privately and publicly have diametrically opposite positions, or publicly you're like, hey, I want to be here, but privately maybe through a representative you're like, hey, if that's the case, that's fine, let me go, move me on. I mean, this is your career. It's not.
Yeah.
This is your. This is your entire. For all we know, we only live once. You know what I mean? There's no guarantee that there's a secondary world after this. So you know what I mean? You don't have to get too deep, but it's like your goal is to play quarterback and be a starting quarterback in the NFL. If they're not going to give you that opportunity, and they're open about it, doesn't seem like too far-fetched that he could say, hey, look, I want a chance to compete, but if you don't want to give me that chance to compete, then I wouldn't mind having a chance to go somewhere where I could have a chance to compete.
I think both things can be true, Larry. I think he really could want to be here, but also kindly ask to be traded. Think about it. Like, if this is where he was drafted, this is what he knows. He loves his teammates. He loves Kyle. He wants to be here, but he also wants to be a starting quarterback, or at least have that chance. And so I think if he's asked the question publicly, even then he's not necessarily lying. If they're like, hey, would you want to be anywhere else? No, this is where I want to be. I want to be in San Francisco. That can be true. But then the flip side is, hey, if you're not going to at least give me that chance, I understand. I get it. Brock played great. He's earned it. Not trying to take anything away from him, but I got to get my career going. So let's not make a big circus about it. I'm not going to do anything publicly. I'm not going to make your job any harder, but I'm just kindly asking that you see what's out there for me. I just want a chance to compete this offseason. And if I can't do that here, I totally understand it. I get it. No hard feelings, but try to find me a spot and let's see if we can make something work where I do have a chance to compete. And I totally think that that's within the realm of possibility. I really do.
Yeah, no, I do too.